Well, next week there will be a trial that is causing shockwaves in a large national church, and it centers around a Susquehanna Valley pastor.
The Reverend Frank Schaefer, pastor at a United Methodist church in Lebanon, performed a same-sex marriage ceremony for his son, which was against church rules.
News 8's Jerry Gish talked with the pastor whose case is dividing the church.
The Zion United Methodist Church of Iona in Lebanon is a modest church with a beautiful sanctuary. But this church and its pastor now find themselves in the middle of a firestorm.
It's been very difficult. The last 6 months or so have been very difficult. And, people that know me well tell me, Frank, you have aged.
If you're looking for how this all started, it was 13 years ago when Reverend Frank Schaefer and his wife got an anonymous call that their oldest son, Tim, was depressed and gay.
I was in total denial at first. I thought that this can't be. My son is not gay.
But when they asked him about it, Tim told them it was true.
And when he shared that with us, my wife and I just ran to him and we just hugged him, and there was a lot of tears, I remember, and we just told him, we love you, and we accept you the way you are. He did not want to be homosexual, and he thought it was going to be a problem for me as a pastor.
Tim eventually embraced his sexuality, and in 2006, asked his father if he'll perform the marriage of Tim and his partner, which is legal where they now live in Massachusetts.
It was actually a really difficult decision for me to even ask him, knowing that doing so he would risk his job, and I really wanted him to do the ceremony. That was really special to me, to have him do that.
In one sense, it was an easy decision because, first of all, I love him so much. and of course, because of all the affirmations that we had given him. I mean, just imagine I would have told him no. It would have just negated all those affirmations.
In 2007, Frank performed a small marriage ceremony. He didn't talk about it when he returned home here to his church in Lebanon, knowing it would be divisive. And for nearly 6 years, nothing happened. Then earlier this year, just weeks before a statute of limitations would have run out, a member of Frank's congregation filed a complaint against him with the church. The reaction was swift.
It has brought a lot of negativity into the church, so our peace has been disrupted here.
Frank now faces a church trial where judge and jury are all members of the United Methodist clergy. Frank has clearly broken a church rule, but his defense team will argue it's a rule that should be changed.
There is something wrong when we have a paragraph in our discipline that excludes people from receiving the same ministry that everybody else receives.
It's a debate that has led to emotional responses on both sides.
I'm very concerned about the division that is existing within the United Methodist Church.
We talked to Reverend Tom Lambrick via Skype, a United Methodist minister for nearly 30 years. He now leads a group that promotes traditional Christianity in the church.
The Bible is clear that marriage is envisioned between one man and one woman, and that's God's ideal for us. And so we believe that it's important for the church to maintain that, no matter what the culture might say.
The controversy has caused a significant group of people to leave Frank's church.
Some have left because of this issue, and others have left because of the turmoil that ensued.
As for Tim, he says he's proud of the stand his father is taking.
I think ultimately it was a really the ultimate kind of a loving act of a father to choose supporting his son over the potential of risking his whole career.
A family and a church caught in the middle of a cultural and moral debate.
I'm hoping that something good will come out of it, that in the end maybe the church will question whether this exclusionary law is really right.
The church needs to reach out in love. But the question is, what kinds of behaviors and actions in our lives are consistent with God's teaching and with moral understanding?
And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love.
A show of solidarity in the city of brotherly love.
I'm hoping that what we did today opens the door for a new day in the church.
We will walk with each other.
45 clergy, 36 from the United Methodist Church, gathered to preside the same-sex wedding of two men, longtime members here at Arch Street United Methodist.
Powerful to have that witness of how many clergy are just eager to exercise their call. That's an all-inclusive call for all people.
Our camera wasn't allowed inside here in the sanctuary for the ceremony, but reporters were. And in many ways, this was a traditional marriage ceremony. But during the homily, the lead pastor criticized what he called the hypocrisy of the United Methodist Church. That homily was interrupted several times by applause. Other times, there were murmurs of agreement by those who gathered here. And after the vows and the exchange of rings, the clergy who came here to preside over this ceremony stood. Two of them put their hands on the couple, and the other clergy put their hands on the shoulder of the clergy in front of them. And together, in unison, they recited a declaration of marriage.
I just had goosebumps all over.
The clergy were here to support Reverend Frank Schaefer. The minister from Zion United Methodist Church of Iona in Lebanon faces a church trial that could end with him being defrocked for officiating at his son's same-sex wedding.
This is a historic moment. This is a historic moment. This is the beginning of something wonderful. And one day we will see those exclusionary policies disappear from the United Methodist Church.
The United Methodist ministers taking part in the ceremony could face similar consequences as Reverend Schaefer. They decided to be here anyway.
There's a movement of folks who really feel as though that what Frank did, what we did here today, was nothing but be good pastors.
These ministers that you saw today, they laid their credentials and their careers on the altar today as they performed what they in their heart believed was the right thing to do.
If I am in error, I would rather err on the side of love than judgment.
And they'll know we are Christians by our love, by our love.
In Philadelphia, Jerry Gish, News 8.
Susquehanna Valley pastor who went against his church and performed his son's same-sex marriage is now awaiting his punishment. Good evening, I'm Ron Martin.
And I'm Kim Lemon. News 8's Barbara Barr has been following this church trial. She joins us live from Chester County with the latest. Barbara?
Kim and Ron, it was a day filled with drama. The jury is now deliberating. The defense told jurors the world is watching. Be compassionate and loving. But the church council told them they must remove Pastor Frank Schaefer. His views are incompatible with church teachings. Frank Schaefer walked into the makeshift courthouse at Camp Inaba, his future as a United Methodist minister hanging in the balance. On the witness stand, he put on a rainbow-colored stole. When asked by church council if he will promise never to officiate a same-sex marriage ceremony again, a defiant Schaefer answered, "I cannot." It was a former member of his Lebanon County congregation who filed a charge against Schaefer for officiating his son Tim's gay marriage in Massachusetts 6 years ago. That violated church law. Tim Schaefer testified, "I knew the position I was putting him in. Supporting me meant probably losing his career." Testimony in the morning revealed Zion United Methodist Church is losing members and money. Feelings about Schaefer run strong in the congregation.
The congregation has been firmly behind Pastor Frank. His evaluations as a member of the Staff Parish Relations Committee every year are really stellar.
One church member who testified against Schaefer believes the jury must remove him as minister.
Honestly, to not defrock him sends a message that I think would be hurtful in the long run.
And the judge instructed jurors that if they are close to a verdict around 7:30, they could stay past 8 o'clock tonight, or else they could return tomorrow. The last time a United Methodist minister was defrocked in this district was 9 years ago. We're live in Chester County. We'll send it back to you, Ron.
We'll see what happens. Tonight, a Lebanon County man is now a former pastor stripped of his church credentials because he presided over a same-sex marriage for his son. News 8's Barbara Barr spoke with the Reverend Frank Schaefer in Philadelphia following today's decision by the United Methodist Church.
So many of them had tears in their eyes. They said, "We really don't want to do this."
But they did. About 40 clergy members in the United Methodist Church defrocked Frank Schaefer. They upheld a jury's verdict at a church trial last month that found Schaefer, a minister in Lebanon County, had violated church law by officiating the same-sex marriage of his son and refusing to promise not to officiate more gay marriages in the future.
The church needs to recognize and acknowledge that things have changed and times are changing and people are changing.
Police surrounded the church's headquarters where the decision was made in a meeting that lasted about 15 minutes. Schaefer refused to surrender his credentials, so they were taken from him. A spokesman read this statement from the area bishop, Peggy Johnson, about the divide that this case has created in the church.
We must commit ourselves to engage in ongoing prayer and reflection, sensitive, peaceful dialogue, and diligent study so that we can better understand the needs and concerns of LGBTQ members and their broader community.
Schaefer says he will appeal the decision.
I'm not bending all kinds of rules. I'm bending rules that are discriminatory.
Schaefer says he plans to speak on behalf of LGBT rights at churches and universities and will appear on national talk shows as well. In Philadelphia, Barbara Barr, News 8.
Schaefer held his press conference in Germantown at the same church where a minister was defrocked 9 years ago for being a homosexual.